Hey guys, Mr. Ridgway here for our next lesson on World War II. Grab your coats because today we're going to get really cold on the excruciating Eastern Front of World War II. With the warm-up, do the best you can on it. You'll actually find out that it's okay if you don't know anything for it. We're going to be reassessing you on it here at the end of the block and see what kind of growth you make. But anyways, let's get on to what we're going to be talking about. So first, we are going to be indeed looking at the Eastern Front, at least probably up until the front kind of turns, and we'll talk about what event likely we can kind of point to as being an indicator there. Once we do that, then we are going to take a look at, it's about an 8-minute video. I think it's a little bit shorter than that, maybe it's about 5 minutes. Of something that is to come, and that is the Holocaust. And so we are going to talk about the Einsatzgruppen and what all is going on with them, because it's something that I need to at least begin to start planting in your brain that this stuff happens very early on in World War II. At the end of the block, we're going to do a retest on geography, so that'll be available for you in the plus stuff folder. So go look for that. It'll say Western Europe map quiz attempt 2. Okay, and go ahead and take that. But let's get on and talk about the Eastern Front. So this one's going to be a little bit different. At least the Eastern Front is. It's very different than the Western Front, although both will use Blitzkrieg. As you grab a copy of the notes here, you'll see that it says a forced choice mini lesson. So there's some decisions that are going to be made here that we're going to talk about that are very influential in terms of how the Eastern Front goes. So we're going to be looking at sometimes how the influence of single choices can affect the outcome of really much of how the war goes on the Eastern Front. So let's get right into it, shall we? All right, where we left off with talking about Germany and Russia. Okay, so let's just talk about some context here. If I'm moving my head just a little bit so you can see. Again, the last time that we really talked about Germany and what Russia and what they were all up to was when we were talking about them signing a non-aggression pact with each other after they had wiped out Poland. Okay, so a non-aggression pact is basically this deal where you say, oh yeah, I'm not going to slap you in the face and you're not going to slap me either. Cool? And they're like, yeah, cool. And again, in response to the whole Poland thing, that's why Britain and France had declared war. Now, obviously, okay, we talked last lesson, okay, France is out. It's under Nazi control now. And again, Britain is alone, and they have, by this point, okay, and at least in 1941, which is the year that we are, they've kind of mostly at this point gotten through the Battle of Britain. It's kind of ending, at least tailing off compared to where it was at its height. Earlier. So let's get right into it. Okay. And I am going to first, okay, show you our first choice that is going to be very tough for Hitler to make. So there's a scenario right here, and I'm going to read through it with you. And you're going to make an argument here as to what Hitler should do, okay, in these particular circumstances. Again, you absolutely don't have to agree with the guy, but you'll see that he has a bit of a predicament here. So it says, Mussolini's delay of Operation Barbarossa. It says, in late June 1941, Hitler's planned invasion of the Soviet Union, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, began. It was an unusual time for an invasion, several months later than most military commanders would have advised such a massive undertaking. You might remember what happened to Napoleon when he invaded Russia. If you don't know, he froze. It was bad. The winter contributed heavily to his defeat. So why was Hitler delayed these couple of months? Now, if you look at June, you're like, well, why wouldn't you just invade in May? That would make way more sense because you're out of the cold weather by then, and also that gives you more time before something coming, and that is the Russian winter. So why was Hitler delayed? Why June? It's a very odd time. And so if you look here, it says, earlier that spring, watching Hitler conquer Poland and then France, his Italian ally Mussolini became jealous. Seeking to get Italy back into the World War II spotlight, Italy suddenly invaded Greece without telling Germany. What made matters worse is that Italy's invasion started to fail and began to call for help from the Germans. Thus, Hitler had a choice. Should he go and bail out his only ally in Europe and delay his invasion of the Soviet Union, risking fighting in the Russian winter? Right? And that's the thing you have to think about. Russian winters are really cold. Or should he attack at the proper time and not risk fighting in the winter, but lose an ally? So I want to know from you, what would you do? And on your notes, give an answer and then provide some reasons for your decision. So pause the video if you need to while you do that. I'm going to go ahead and actually read you what Hitler did in reality. It's pretty obvious because we kind of mentioned it there. So it says, in actual history, Hitler did go and bail out his ally Mussolini. However, this delayed the invasion of the Soviet Union by a few months because Hitler had to redeploy his forces to first help Italy and then redeploy them again to prepare to attack the Soviet Union. And so voila, Hitler has lost a couple of months, and tick, 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 the Russian winter is coming along. So that brings us to then what we're going to, in fact, talk about here, which is Hitler's invasion of Operation Barbarossa. Barbarossa, the nickname for it, is a massive undertaking. It's a huge attack. And again, you're like, wait, I thought the two had signed a non-aggression pact. Why the heck in June 1941 is Hitler invading Russia? It goes back to two or kind of three things that we mentioned earlier. So the first is that idea of Lebensraum, living space. And with that, there's kind of a racial tinge to it. And Hitler and the Germans very, very strongly believe that, you'll hear clips of it here in a second, that the Russian people, who are mostly ethnic Slavs, are just subhuman and lesser. And so there's kind of there's a very, very heavy racial tinge here, as well as maybe he thought that Stalin was, competition. Now, the Soviets, how do they respond to this? They are caught completely by surprise. They had no idea. I mean, they had heard some warnings that maybe something was happening. Stalin refused to believe that Hitler would actually do this, and he did. And so you can see there's three army groups, those big, nice, bluish kind of arrows there. So that we have Army Group North, which is aiming for Leningrad, Army Group Center, which is aiming for Moscow, which is probably the main goal, and then Army Group South, which is kind of to swing down into places like the Crimea, as well as some of the Caucasus, which are that's kind of over here-ish. It's where a lot of Russian oil is. So, and they take just a silly amount of land there, okay? And you can see the little dashed line about how much land they take just by December 1941, okay? So, did they make it by the winter to Moscow? No. Well, I've got a video here I'd like you to watch that gives you a bit of an overview on Barbarossa. Check it out, please. It's really interesting and really, really good. And then all of a sudden, we get a second tough decision for Hitler in the middle of Operation Barbarossa. So let's go check that one out. Helping German Army Group South. So in late June 1941, Hitler's planned invasion of the Soviet Union, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, had began. It says, catching the Soviet Union by surprise, Hitler's three army groups, named Army Group North, Group Center, and Group South, pushed east for weeks with little resistance. Take a look at the map for some reference. Okay. As they pushed west, however, the progress of one army group slowed, Army Group South. Bogged down by Russian marshes, it was not progressing at the pace Hitler's plans demanded. One idea was to use forces from Army Group Center to swing down south and assist them. On one hand, if Hitler did this, it would catch the floundering Army Group South up, but it might delay the attack of Army Group Center on Moscow and risk running into the Russian winter. Yet, leaving Army Group South behind would keep the push on Moscow on schedule, but it might expose German forces to attacks on their flanks. So what would you do? Okay? So let's see the decision that's made. I actually didn't spoil this one for you. You can maybe hint at what Hitler does. So it says, in actual history, Hitler did go and bail out Army Group South with help from Army Group Center. The Germans surrounded the Russian forces around the city of Kiev in a giant pincer. Okay, this is, again, classic blitzkrieg, right? Tens of thousands of Russians were captured. However, this delayed the attack on Moscow by Army Group Center because Hitler had to redeploy his forces. A monumental victory. hundreds of thousands of Russians taken captive, but at what cost, right? So I'd love to hear your thinking. By the way, this brings us to Stalingrad, which please watch this video. Stalingrad is a battle that happens the following year, and it is a desperate attempt by Hitler to hold on to that southern flank there that I mentioned, and it will fail. And this battle is seen as much the turning point for at least the last gasp opportunity of anything else, of the Germans to take kind of any kind of momentum they can on the Eastern Front. So let's go ahead on, and here's your exit ticket. Okay, once you do that, I'm going to explain the last activity. It's called Einsatzgruppen. And the Einsatzgruppen is really, really important. This is a video that we're going to watch. This comes from the World Holocaust Museum. I think it's the United States Holocaust Museum. Because we do need to go ahead and mention what is happening behind the front lines on the Eastern Front. So on your notes there, I'd like you to summarize a couple of things that you learned from this video, because you're going to start to see that it's not all the action is just happening where the front lines are pushing. It's also really important what's happening behind the front lines and what Germans and people who are collaborating with them do. So check that out, please. Okay, the video's there. Once you do so, okay, we are going to go on to the next activity, which is taking your retest on your geography. Once you've done that, you're all done for this lesson, and congrats, you're all done. So with that, again, that's in your test and quiz stuff folder there on Schoology. With that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.